Yes, I am a psychotherapist, though I'm not practicing at the moment because of the pandemic. For one reason, I have school children at home and the schools are mostly closed here in Berlin. And also because I have become a climate activist now 1.5 years ago. And this topic has become so important to me that I decided, also because I can, that I will devote my time that I have at the moment to climate activism. That's so far about me. I'll start the presentation now for you. Okay, so I'm as an activist, I'm active with the Psychologists and Psychotherapists for Future. And I'm also working for a new founded party in Berlin that is called Climate List Berlin. So we're trying to bring climate politics into Berlin Parliament this fall. But today this is going to be about how the psychological and therapists in Germany are trying to bring their skills into the climate movement in Germany, and how we are doing it. So I'll give you a little history about our organization, how we are working, what kind of topics we have found work well for us. I'll give you a couple examples, and then I'm happy to hear questions, and maybe there's also some time that you can explain to me how you're working and what kind of things you have been doing with your organization. I'm a little bit curious about that too. So how it started is that a couple of colleagues, practitioners of psychotherapy from a town somewhere in the middle of Germany. I emphasize this because it doesn't always have to come out of the political center of a nation. They read the climate report of the American Psychological Association. And this was triggered by the student protests of Fridays for Future in 2019, which became very big in Germany. I don't know if you noticed or saw that. I would think that you know this report. It's I'm not going to say anything about the contents in this presentation. It is a collection of knowledge about the connection of mental health and climate crisis. And in Germany, we didn't have anything like that yet. So it was the first, impressive collection of knowledge that we needed. Okay, and then they wrote a statement on what they think was the connection between psychology and the climate crisis. And they included here these points that I wrote down for you. First, the climate crisis is generally underestimated. It takes courage to face it. It's a psychological task to motivate people towards environmental awareness and also towards behavioral change. This awareness can bring about symptoms of mental distress, similar to mental disorders, similar but not the same. The consequences of climate change can lead to full-grown mental disorders. And one important point is, as psychologists and psychotherapists, it is our duty to help people maintain their mental health, to cope with adversities and support progress. The very existence of well-being of future generations is threatened at the moment and cannot be overcome without political action. So here you see the pointed towards politics and not only individual behavior change. And then they close with, we all have a right to psychological well-being out of the Declaration of Human Rights, emphasizing that it's all a point addressing the psychological and psychotherapeutic profession to remind them that they have a moral duty here to act. So they wrote this statement and sought support for it, and they found support. They found 4,200 colleagues signing this statement. So we now closed it. We are not moving on or going on with this particular thing, but we were very happy to see that it's that we found so much support for it. So now, how it's going? We you can see here in this graphic, we have local teams in different German cities. I think it's 40 to 50. I'm not sure. I'm very sad because our website is down at the moment, so I couldn't look it up how many local teams we have at the moment, but it is very, very many. And we have working teams or task forces around certain topics. We have a team that is coordinating, and you see pointing the arrows to the delegate council, which is our democratic decision-making team. So in the whole, we are at the moment about 750 colleagues organized, and many of them are newly politicized. Some of them, of course, are from the environmental movement in general, but a lot of them are actually newly engaged in climate action. We don't have any funding so far, or not very much, not only because we can't have any, but also because nobody has taken care of this. It's all volunteer work, and yeah, we have newly founded an association, an official nonprofit association. So we are structuring ourselves a little bit more professional now, and then you can become an official member of our organization, and then we will probably have more funding. So we're very excited about this process at the moment. Okay, now, so I'll tell you something about what we are actually doing. So one part of what we are doing is press work. We are trying to communicate the connection between mental health and the climate crisis, and also about the climate anxiety and what it is. We are doing counseling for climate activists in person or for groups. We are doing mediation with conflicts and awareness work when we have a lot of activism around the building of highways at the moment, and also around coal. There are climate camps and conflicts with the police, and we're trying to give support around this. Also, we have experience of police violence and things like that. Yeah, we do the social media thing. We publish information about climate communication. We do cooperation with associations of the profession. This is a thing that is my baby, because I have been organized in a major association of psychotherapists before, and we try to politicize them. I'll tell you about it later. We are in the streets ourselves, and we see what psychology can tell us about how people are digesting the climate crisis. So we are looking, some of us are psychoanalysts, so they are looking into the theory of psychoanalysis and how it can inform us in our action. Some of us are within school psychology, so it's like everywhere that we are drawing our resources together to see what we can do. Yeah, we have also founded international cooperations with psychologists in other countries, in Sweden and Italy, with the Climate Psychology Association. I'm actually at the moment not sure is it a British thing, but I haven't been in part of that, so I'm not 100% informed what kind of work they have been doing. Yep. So that's some of the things we're doing. So here, I want to give you one example around our press work. The topic is often that they ask us to say something about climate anxiety. And it's very important for us to depathologize climate anxiety because, yeah, well, first thing, what is it? Climate anxiety is a chronic fear of environmental doom, a generalized sense that the foundations of existence are in the process of collapse. Non-specific worries about our relationship to sport environment. There's a climate anxiety scale by Professor Clayton. I've drawn out 2 items for you. My concerns about climate change interfere with my ability to get work or school assignments done. And my concerns about climate change undermine my ability to work to my potential. So we see a lot of questions about this topic from the press, from newspapers mainly, and also from television. And our communication task is to say it is not a problem of especially vulnerable people that you are climate anxious because you have problems, but that it is a completely normal and expectable reaction to the climate crisis. And this is actually a kind of a difficult task because people like to say, to explain climate anxiety around someone being hypersensitive or being maybe mentally stressed from before, having problems anyhow. And yeah, it is important for us to say and frame it in a way that climate anxiety is a normal reaction to the situation we have. And of course, there's you can be it can become a mental disorder of clinical relevance, but it is in itself not a diagnosis of or a disorder in itself. Yeah. So well, the other thing is that we're communicating the connection between mental health and the climate crisis. And one thing I can tell you from this week is we had the Fridays for Future movement filed a lawsuit against the German government because they did a legislation last year that they called the climate law, and we said it is just too little effort. It doesn't help against climate change, and so they filed a lawsuit against the government that they are not protecting the future generations as it is as their duty is according to the German constitution. And the constitutional court just gave its result, its judgment this week, that they said, yes, it's true, the government is not, this law is not constitutional and the government has to do better. And so that was a big win for us and for the Fridays for Future movement. And then a lawyer out of this case, a climate lawyer, contacted us, a psychologist for future, and he said, thank you that you have been communicating so well, and this connection between climate change and mental health has one part of the reason the law said that the government is not doing well enough and it's not protecting the future generations well enough. And well, we were like, wow, our work is reaching the top level. So that was, of course, very nice for us. Okay, so I'll give you a second example of our work. climate resilience is a key topic that we are working with. You know the term resilience, I'm sure. It can be defined as the ability of a person or a community to cope with, grow through, and transcend adversity. And we have defined a new term of climate resilience as the ability to go through the emotional distress that comes out of the confrontation with the climate crisis, and to be able to stay sane, still stay healthy in spite of everything. So our approach is to facilitate the acceptance of the emotional distress which is triggered when faced with the truth around the climate crisis. So for us, it is the key of becoming resilient, to be able or to learn to live through the emotions of distress, grief, of anger, and accept that it is not necessary to stay strong or untouched, and rather become flexible enough to feel all this. So we found some, or we are offering different forms of support to foster climate resilience. Within our personal counseling, we're offering also sharing circles where people share their emotions and are able to see that they're not the only ones that are scared, that are angry or sad. It is drawn from what we say grief work, as when a person is grieving, how do you help a person through his or her grief? There's also a lot of acceptance work necessary, and we see this grief work in the climate, in working through these emotions too. We also give workshops about sustainable activism, or how to be an activist and not burn out after a while, and how to give give self-care, and how to fill up your akku, your how to stay in balance. Yeah. So this is actually the reasons why I like the Psychologists for Future so much, because they're not only saying you can do it and we do it together, but they also have a good idea of how we can do it. And I find this very well. It's really fosters empathy and staying a soft person and a feeling person. Okay, so my third point of what we're doing. I think I'm very, very quick with what I prepared with you. Well, that's fine. So the third thing is the politicization of the profession. Psychologists and psychotherapists have immensely important skills with great potential for helping out the society and adjusting to the climate crisis, but they tend to prefer a receptive stance over a manipulating one. I don't know if you agree to it, but that's what I'm seeing. Psychologists and psychotherapists are not the ones who are stepping forward and saying, I want this, I want that, and we have to do it this way, but they're more of a receptive type of people. Which is bad when they have a political responsibilities. If you carry responsibilities, you have to be active. You can't just wait. So our approach to this problem is we have been writing articles where we are pointing out the moral and ethical obligations, especially of our profession, to act in case of human rights. Well, this is part of our professional rules. We have to act in case of human rights violation, and we see the lack of climate action as a human rights violation. So we have been linking that and writing articles with the moral finger. This is not something that you can stay silent about. I'm trying to politicize. The other thing we have been doing is we have been emphasizing that the practical possibilities based on the professional skills we all have. Since since it is so difficult to face the climate crisis, there's a lot of psychology going on. I'm sure you have reflected on that a lot. And so we have been writing articles about what skills do we have, how can we use them for a good reaction to the climate crisis, how can we help the society transform in a peaceful way, how can we act to prevent too much social conflict and so on the basic thought of non-assistance when you have the possibility to help is morally condemnable. So you can't just not assist when you can. This is putting a lot of also moral finger pressure on the profession. We have initiated a working platform. We have actually plenty of psychotherapists associations. There's 20 or 30 associations of different types of psychotherapists in Germany and around their profession, that we have founded a working platform where they are sharing their climate action to foster collective action around and among each other, and also to foster the communication of good examples. And this has really helped them found their own working groups within their associations and becoming more, not pushing this topic away anymore. We have also initiated change of the legal foundations of the associations, because they have been answering us always, well, we as psychotherapists, we get our funding for doing our work for psychotherapists or psychologists. And so it's not our job to look after the climate. And but you can see that in the rules of the profession, they do say you're responsible to do a good work with your client, and there's the rules, but you have also the responsibility to look after the social basis that fosters mental health. And if there are major problems, you can't, it's also your job to look after that. But the environment hasn't been included. It's always the social environment, but not the ecological environment. So we have initiated the change of these legal foundations that the ecological environment is included, so that the psychotherapists see, okay, it's also my job. And they become a little more, have more courage to step forward. Okay, so these are the 3 examples I have had, and this is some pictures of me and my colleagues on the street. Well, I always like to look at these pictures, and I thank you very much for your attention. And now I'm curious for your questions.
Thanks so much, Katharina. That was awesome, really interesting, and love to see all the pictures of you and the Psychologists for Future out in the streets. I will hand over to Andrew now to go through the questions that we've received. And if you have any more questions that have come through, or you just want to talk to Katharina, then that would be amazing. Just let us know and we can put you on live, or you could just send in a question. So on that note, once again, thank you so much, Katharina. Let's see what people have to ask you.
Yeah, great. Thank you for the incredible talk. Very good. Do have a few questions that have come in already, and I'm sure a few more will come in here as we go along. But there was a first one from Amanda, and Amanda just asked briefly if you could elaborate a little bit on how global climate change can lead to psychological issues.
Okay. Well, the most things we know about this is actually from this report of the American Psychological Association. They did them, as far as I know. Well, there's one reason is that it is causing extreme weather events, and the extreme weather events are causing the loss of livelihoods or chaotic, traumatic situations. So you have this strain on the stability of communities and individuals, which is causing PTSD. So it's not only a guess, it's actually, they have been looking at the Katharina storm, and they have the most data from that. So you can see that we'll have globally a lot of more extreme weather events than we used to have. The other thing is that heat itself is causing more aggression. This is also proven. People become more aggressive when it is hotter. And then you have the next thing, that is the climate change is causing migration, and migration, well, mass migration in the future. So because of the destruction of the living foundations in the global south, which is more, you can't really prove this psychologically, but you can imagine that when people, well, I actually myself find it hard to break it down on mental health when you know everything is fucked up. But of course, then the mental health is also fucked up, But there's also studies that can show it in detail. But and the other thing is, of course, that you have, I don't know, in Germany. Germany is actually, the temperature in Germany is rising faster than in the global average. We have already 1.5 elevation of our temperatures in Germany, and we see a drought, and the forests are dying. There's villages without water, and when this is progressing, I don't know about, I'm not a specialist in agriculture, but I know that the crops are not as effective as they used to be. So you see that there's whole parts of the society that are having to change or losing their incomes or having to find new ways of living. And this is causing social conflicts. And you will see, just in a society with this kind of change, you will have a social conflict on some level, but the harsher the changes are going to be, the harsher the conflicts are going to be. So you'll have everything between a distrust in government, or you probably have it in England too. The people denying the pandemic, the virus. Of course, we have the people denying the climate change too, and this is just a flavor of the kind of social conflict that we are seeing, and this is leading to violence of some sort, and violence is always leading to mental health problems. And so I myself, I'm a kind of a doomer. I'm quite afraid of that side of the climate crisis, because I can't see how we are going through it without major conflicts. And we are already having the people dying in the Mediterranean Sea. We're already letting people jump across the in German there's the saying, you have them jump across the knife. Well, just accepting their death and and there's in the just daily way of handling things, we have more violence than we used to have already. And this is not going to get better because we have the coolest year this year that we are going to see in the next 100 years. Well, this is just a very general answer to this question.
Right. Thank you for that. Hopefully that answered a little bit for Amanda there. I see Sabine has just posted asking if you'd be willing to share any of your workshops or their contents on sustainable activism. I don't know if that'd be something you'd be willing to do, but she's put her email on there if you might be willing to connect with her at some point. And then I also see that Dorothy had a question she was keen to ask, so I'll take her off mute and let her ask her question right now, if you don't mind. Dorothy, go ahead.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so thank you very much for a really inspiring talk. So I'm a lecturer in psychology, but I'm not a clinical psychologist. But of course, you know, I would be really interested in how we can build some of this work into our teaching and our curriculum. So I wanted to ask, do you have any resources or teaching materials that you could recommend that we could perhaps build into undergraduate or master's level teaching to our students, thinking about sending them out as you know, clinical psychologists of the future?
Oh, that is a good question. I know we have been, well, I know one thing is our resources are mostly in German. We have a collection of material, of articles and stuff, often published in English. And I have been, we are working on a platform called We Change, which is a collaborative platform. And we don't have any set ready for you, you know. This is your folder, and here you go with the material. But we do have on the We Change platform an international section where you are welcome to join and look through it, what you can use. I see there's this the part of climate communication and general psychology, and well, this connection, mental health and climate change, if it's for the clinical psychology. Yeah, I think we would have to look into that closer, but you're welcome to write me an email, and I can also connect you to colleagues that have been doing more talks than me.
That would be very helpful, and we could maybe, I used to be able to speak German. Wir können übersetzen. We could translate, right? So I think it'd be really nice, actually. And can I ask one more question? This one is a bit more personal. So I notice, you know, it makes me personally feel a lot better, like a lot better, when I am doing something. And I think maybe the metaphor is like, if my ship is sinking, that I want a bucket. I want to stay busy with my bucket. And even if the ship goes down, somehow it makes me feel so much better to be busy. And I wonder, is that just me, or is there something in that for all of us?
Well, it's certainly true that it's better for your mental health to be active than to be passively watching what is going on.
Yeah.
There's one thing, but I'm not a big fan of this frame because you don't know. I know that what will come out of your action. So you're not you can't see the future, and there are also social tipping points of social action. There's some studies about how large the percentage of support for an idea has to be so that it becomes a dominant idea in a society.
Yeah.
And we are not at the in the center of the power, but we do our actions do have some impact. So I think it's very hard to estimate that impact. And I myself prefer not to estimate it at all, but to just follow my heart in a way and see what is my potential and how do I use it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dorothy. I think that probably touches on a couple questions we had from the audience. I saw from Gianmarco and Elizabeth Marks in there. Elizabeth, I'm not sure if I take you off mute, would you be interested in sort of asking a little bit more of your question and following up with your thoughts there? See if Elizabeth's there.
Hi there. Hi, thanks for your talk. I mean, I completely agree with this argument that climate anxiety is normal, fully healthy, and not restricted to vulnerable people. And I've been doing a little bit of research in this area, and I guess, but I kind of feel like part of maybe our responsibility as psychologists is to really develop the evidence base around this to support these claims in a way, along with the evidence base for what we can do to support people in developing their resilience. I just wondered if you had any thoughts around what kind of research we might be able to do, or building up a kind of research network around this as psychologists.
Well, that's a very interesting question. It's hard for me to answer because I don't know what the situation is, what kind of literature or research is actually being done. My idea is that for some people it's counterintuitive to see that grief or anger, these emotions are actually triggering rational or right behavior, and that you need the emotional connection to the issue to actually be able to act. And so the resilience part is that when you have the connection, you will have the energy to behave in a rational way and not like do this one or so, but this is more a focus, right? On the useful side of emotions. And when I talked about this concept with psychotherapists, they say, "Oh yeah, well, we know this is the emotional focused therapy approach, and oh yeah, that's just very normal, as I call it, grief. Well, I don't know the English word for this. Sorry, the grief work thing." Mm-hmm. So they were not so much excited about the approach itself, but more about to use it actually to go out and get it into practice. What I was thinking was that this sharing circle thing is something, it's always good to have a facilitator that is professional, but people will have to have a use and need for it on such a broad basis that it would be good to have self-help format that works in a, like the anonymous alcoholics in a self-help context, that you can have. I know there's about death, there's, I don't know what's called, these meeting circles where you meet and talk about death, but could also have this format of we meet and talk about how we feel about the climate crisis and share and support and share how we deal with it. That would be an interesting project, I think. But for the closer psychological research of concepts, what do you think?
I think that's really interesting. I think the death cafes is probably what you're talking about. I know the Climate Psychology Alliance in the UK is running some climate cafes and doing a project looking at that. I mean, I agree with you. I think in a way, one of the things we're up against is facing the general sense in society that talking about difficult emotions is something that you don't do. But in order to deal with the climate crisis, we've got to get more comfortable with talking about difficult emotions. I'm not sure either, but I think there's a lot. I think there's a lot to be done, and I suppose that maybe that's one aspect of us as psychologists that we can lead on is developing that kind of evidence base to talk about this from as well.
Yeah, I think talking about it is not the point, but more having them. I think the sharing part is important. It's really getting in touch.
Thanks.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I thought I'd draw out a little bit Dorothy's metaphor of the bailing water out of the sinking boat. a little bit. If we think back to another grand disaster, the Titanic, the stories you remember from that is not people bailing water, but people listening to the string quartet keep playing as the boat was sinking. And I was thinking, as a sort of metaphor, because does that tie back to people getting burnt out on climate activism, and people feel the scale of the problem is insurmountable and sort of give up on this thing? We've had a few questions about how to stop people from becoming burnt out on climate activism.
Yeah, I think that the climate crisis fosters a hyper focus on the outside, and you need to stay healthy. You need a balance between looking into the inside and see, who am I, where am I, what do I need, and where am I, what is the situation outside, and what is my responsibility in my job outside. And I think climate activists have a hyper focus on the outside, which is, when you have an exam, or when you have something important to do, then you will always have a hyper focus on the outsides, because you need a lot of work to be done. But usually these things are finished at some point, and then you are allowed to take a break. And the climate activists, the danger in the climate activism is that you never find a point where it is done. And I think since we have been calculating the budgets of carbon dioxide, there's this rhetoric of the 10 years we still have, and there's no time left. So there's like, if I don't act now, everything will be lost. And there's, of course, truth in it, but it puts a lot of pressure on the activists. I don't think there was any activism so far that had so much pressure in it, and or any social topic with this kind of pressure in it. And so what I see is the fear of losing everything, losing human civilization. But how do you feel when you think you will lose human civilization? How do you feel? And I think then we have the bucket thing. Activism helps not feeling this fear so much, and then you'll have this effect of, okay, Sunday is no meeting. What do I do on Sunday? And then is the anxiety is up. And this kind of effect, this triggers burnout, is obviously. So the resilience thing is, okay, on Sunday I'll feel my grief. I need a day off where I don't have meetings, where I'm not an activist, where I'm just sad or whatever. And I do, and that is the resilient self-care thing. I'll let myself feel what the situation is. Well, yeah, that's. I think that it is a really, really hard task not to become a burnout, have a burnout. It's a very, very difficult task. But well, there's the rhetoric of it's a marathon and not a sprint. That we need you next year and the year after. Still, you have to be activist in a way that you will help you as part of the team for the next 10 years, not just now. Yeah.
How do you recruit? It's sort of a question Jack asked in the chat, but how do you recruit new activists? If the situation, if you can tell them, well, we'll probably never achieve our goals in your lifetime, and anxiety and burnout are really big problems with anyone who does this, but please come join us in this activism. How do you overcome those barriers to getting more people involved in climate activism?
Oh, that's this is kind of outside of my my experience, because but we didn't see this problem so far. The Psychologists for Future, we have a very good press team and a very good social media team, and we are having so many people wanting to join that we can't even find enough activists getting their counseling. We have so many people wanting to give counseling for activists, and we have to spread the word about this possibility some more. So within the psychological bubble, we are very happy to find and I think this offering a concrete way of how you can take part in the activism, then the people well, because the psychotherapists and psychologists are busy people, so they can't really give 10 hours a week, but they can give 2 or 3 hours a week. And if you give them something to do these hours a week, then they'll be part of the thing. This is true, of course, for every kind of organization. It's easier to take part if you have a concrete job to give someone. And maybe it's communicating what you're doing and saying, advising people concrete tasks, and you'll get them, integrate them into the organization.
Makes sense.
Yeah, okay.
I was going to say, I think I see a hand up from Rob in the attendees. So Rob, I'm going to let you ask your question if you'd like.
Great. Hi, everybody. Thanks, Andrew. And thank you, Katharina, for a great talk. I don't have a specific question as such, but I was just responding to, I was just having my own thoughts as you were speaking, and I'd just like to respond and share with you. I think for me, the most important thing, I think there's several important things that we have to hold together, but this is the important thing. As individuals, there's only so much we can do. I mean, that seems quite clear to me. And the best way to achieve change is by working together. So I guess that was my motivation for coming here today, is to hear about your work in Germany and to think about, our work over here. We've got things going on. I can see in the chat, we've got XR Psychologists, for instance, or the Climate Psychology Alliance, and there's various different organizations working. I represent an organization called Opus, which is an organization for promoting understanding in society. And we create spaces where people can talk and they can share their preoccupations with society. And the aim of these meetings is to try and make sense of what's happening in society, and maybe come to some realizations that we hadn't had before. So that's just something that I'm doing over here, and that I'm a part of over here. But yeah, the important message is we need to work together. And I think as climate activists, we often feel like we need to do everything, as you were saying earlier, and the risk of burnout then becomes so great. Of course, if we remind ourselves that we can only do as much as we can do, then I think that's helpful. And also, it doesn't really matter what the outcome is. We do it not because we expect to win, but we do it just because it's the right thing to do.
I totally agree with you, Rob. It's very healthy to be a part of a group and and also to find alliances. I've been active in the climate party in Berlin, and we are trying to join forces with the housing movement, because we have so much, the rents are going up in Berlin, and there's so much speculation on the housing. So that's a topic, there's so different social topics, and I feel like this movement can only be one from bottom to top, and we have to join forces together against the strong interests for the fossil fuel industry.
Yeah,
but it's
Thank you.
I see our time is running up, isn't it?
Yeah, we've just about made it to the end of our time, and I don't spot any other questions. If anyone else has any last final thoughts, speak now or forever hold your peace. But thank you so much for dealing with those questions and your wonderful talk, Katharina. That was wonderful. I guess I'll throw it back to Jack if you have any final words to summarize and throw us out today.
So firstly, thank you yet again, Katharina, for an amazing talk, and everyone else who's here for an amazing discussion. I really enjoyed listening to everyone's kind of questions and discussion about how we, as a variety of different kind of climate activists and psychologists, can work together to do things. And on that note, I think it would be a good idea if just in the last few minutes before we leave, if anyone is representing an organization or university or something that hasn't put their information of some sort into the chat, now would be a good time. I know that representatives from XR Psychologists and also like Rob has mentioned, Opus and things like that have gone in, but if you think that people might be interested in what you do, then chuck it in the chat. Or if you want, you can send an email to the P's email address, and I'll be happy to share this information around to the other attendees, so you can all develop that network that we all want to grow as climate psychologists and climate activists. So I would encourage you to share who you are in some way, shape or form. But other than that little call to action, I don't think there's much more that I mean, obviously, probably if we had another hour, we'd have another hour of discussion, but unfortunately we're running low on time. But I think if just on that note, it's probably good to say thanks, and maybe we'll keep the session open just for another few minutes in case people want to chuck their information.
It's not that easy, but Grammarly can help.
Oh, someone's got an advert playing over in the background. So yeah, on that note then, like I say, I think thank you so much to everyone for coming. It's been a really brilliant talk. Thank you very much, Katharina, for your incredible talk and the amazing work that you do. This has been brilliant. And if you want other people to see this, if you enjoyed this and you think that other people might enjoy it as well, the aim is to get it up on the YouTube by tomorrow morning, if all goes well. So I can send out a link to all of the people who have signed up to attend there, so you can spread it around to people who you thought might be interested, but unfortunately couldn't make it today. But Katharina, I'll throw it to you if you want to say farewell.
Well, thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure. I'm very excited to learn more about your work, which we didn't have room for, of course, today. And also, we talked, well, it was very exciting questions you asked me, and of course, we can't really dwell on them in this format at this moment. And I would be happy if you write emails to me and get in touch with us. And we'll, because I think these questions are just coming up now everywhere, how to integrate this knowledge into psychological teaching. There's concept around, and let's get them out, and so please get in touch. Thank you for today.